Dr. Lee Duffield is Independent Australia's media editor. He was once Triple J's very first, I believe, news editor. Is that right, Lee?
Correct.
Yes. And an
Mm,
ABC correspondent, actually during the fall of the Berlin Wall. Lee
mm.
was a senior lecturer in journalism at QUT until a few years ago and is still whipping up cutting edge articles for Independent Australia on a regular basis. Welcome, Lee. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So, tell us a little bit about how you got involved with us. So what happened, Lee? How did we rope you in?
I had a former journalism student called David Donovan inviting me to write something on a publication he'd conceived. I took a look. I thought it was a great idea and wrote a piece about the French elections at that time, about 8 years ago. Uh, and it was the first in a chain that sketched in some historical background. I've always found that's useful. Um, I think since then we've had about 200 articles.
Is that
So
all?
thank you
200
for the
articles.
outlet. Yes.
Man.
You're such a newbie.
200 articles, it's a lot. But yeah, Lee, look, just from my perspective, just to give my recollections of that, um, I contacted you, I believe, because uh, obviously we had been in contact, but Bob Ellis, who had written for IA for quite some time, had died, and
Mm,
I wanted somebody who had a similar sort of gravitas to be able to, replace the late Bob Ellis, who will note that only after he died did he seem to attract condemnation, which I think was somewhat unfair. But that's another matter entirely. We don't need to
yeah,
go
I'm
into
not looking forward to the day that I die. It'll be terrible to hear
that.
what they say about me.
You're looking forward to the day that you die, Lee. That's
Not,
I'm
not,
not. I'm going
not.
to say that I'm not looking forward to that day at all. Or nor the day that I die, quite frankly. But you were my journalism course coordinator, in fact, and and I would regard you as a friend. And I seem to recall that you actually put me on the student advisory committee at one stage, where I sort of towards the end of my course, where I sort of shocked the people by actually speaking and giving the faculty quite a lot of my views, by unfiltered views.
Mm.
So this is
Well,
all your fault then, Lee, basically.
I've got to say that Lee was one of the best lecturers that I ever had, and somebody who I hold in the greatest of esteem. And that's really the reason why I sought him out. And I was thrilled that he decided that he would work with us. So Ross Jones, I'm going to take over a little bit of this. You're the investigations editor of Independent Australia.
Did
Um,
you know that, Ross?
I'm constantly surprised, Michelle, whatever.
uh, also the former proprietor of Sydney Banker, the Sydney banking magazine, I guess you would say. Um, can you maybe give us a little bit of an idea about how you became first involved with Independent Australia?
Okay, it was back in, I think, 2013. I was working as a private investigator at the time, doing working for lawyers, but doing mostly things that were going to litigation, matters that were going to be litigated. So we're off to court. And I started reading about the James Ashby Peter Slipper matter, which was a sexual harassment case going to court. So it was right up my alley. The kinds of matters that I was doing for a job. So I started paying attention to it and looking into it. And I couldn't find really any information about it. All the information I was finding was complete trivia and rubbish and superficial stuff. And I was very keen to find out what was going on there. And then I came across Independent Australia, which I'd never seen before. And I noticed that Dave, he documented the whole the whole events of Peter Slipper and James Ashby up to that date, and it was the only source of information that I could find that was reliable and not Murdoch AI slop, as it would be these days. It wasn't Murdoch rubbish. So, and it was very informative, well written, and so I did an article for Independent Australia just on the matter, just my thoughts on what had been going on with Peter Slipper and James Ashby, and sent it off to Dave, and it was published, and we've been doing articles ever since.
So I just spoke to Lee before. He said that he's written 200 articles for Independent Australia, which is a lot. How many would you say that you've written? Would you have any idea?
Wouldn't be quite that many, about 180, I think.
Yeah.
Lift your game, Ross. I don't know.
Well, there's still time to catch up with Lee, I guess.
I'm not turning him out like I used to. We'll have to slow down.
Just on that general topic, Lee, what would you say would be your, the articles that you're proudest about on Independent Australia?
Oh, well, I think there are a couple which percolated to the audience choice, top of the list type of thing, or number 7 for the year. That I suppose we'd turn it over to the readers, turn it over to the viewers. And one in particular, it's picked up also by Reddit, and it said, look, there's a lot of somehow coming out of the walls protest around the world. And so we just ran through what was happening at that time. And it was tapping into some kind of global malaise, people not happy about the way things were going. They weren't happy about being oppressed. That was one thing. And that article was a roundup, and I was pleased that it got the nod from people who were reading.
Yeah, it's always nice to get that reader feedback and approbation, I suppose. I'm going to just change focus a little bit, Lee, onto our fearless leader, editor Michelle Pini, our managing editor. Can you just tell me how you became involved with Independent Australia? I should just talk about Michelle. She had a very successful career in marketing for a major wine firm, which sounds like a tremendous job, to be honest. I would love to have had that gig. And had a very successful career, but also has several postgraduate degrees. Tell us how you became involved with IA, please, Michelle.
So, yes, I used to work for the dark side, as I like to call it, in marketing, although wine marketing, not really that dark, I guess. But I decided that I wanted to pursue something else, even though I'd actually had a really good, pretty good career. But I wanted to be a journalist. Hello. And so I decided to go back to uni and do a master's. And one of the requirements was, or not a requirement, but one of the units that I did was actually an internship, which led me to Independent Australia through another contact, one of my lecturers, Dr. Martin Hurst, actually, who also writes for Independent Australia.
And writes many books, has written 14
yes,
14 books on journalism,
texts.
is an esteemed academic as well, as is
right.
Dr. Duffield.
Yeah. And so I did an internship actually with Independent Australia under another editor at the time, Sandy Keane. And in the meantime, Dave and Sandy offered me a part-time job because the internship was unpaid. That was one of the conditions.
I'm sorry about that, Michelle. I apologize.
And it just kind of grew from there. And here I am. You couldn't get rid of me, basically, Dave. So 10 years later, I'm still here.
Well, you've not only still here, but you are the managing editor. So obviously, I must have seen some glint of promise in you. to grant you my former role. No, you've been absolutely tremendous, Michelle. I'm going to just ask you one further question because
Yeah.
while I've got you on the screen, um, what do you think would be your major successes as a writer? Because you've written probably, 1,000 articles. I wouldn't know how many you've written, probably more. What would you suggest were your favorite articles for IA?
Interesting. From my own personal articles or I in
Yeah,
general?
I think so. I think
Oh,
just
okay.
about you, because I remember the first article that you wrote, just as a little bit of context, was about the decline of bees, if I recall. That may not have
Uh,
been your absolute first, but it was the first one that I really picked up because bees are important.
yes.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm actually quite proud of that story and have been thinking about doing a follow-up on that because
mm,
it is still a major issue.
mm,
Not just for Australia, but globally. The decline of bees, which of course influences our food production, food sources
yeah.
internationally. But yes, I was quite proud of that one. And also, I actually did a story about Fukushima, which I think was one of my early
Yes.
pieces that
Helen Caldicott, that was a big story, wasn't it?
yeah. And so, I was quite proud of that one. But I think, I don't know, probably overall, I think the ones that have stayed with me, one of those was, of course, the water buybacks and the
Hmm.
issues that arose out of that, the corruption that was basically uncovered to do with various ministers at the time. And things like robo-debt, which although we're not the only ones who have covered that topic, we've certainly
Mm,
covered it extensively over a long period of time.
mm,
And I guess Brittany Higgins,
yeah.
who again um, has been the subject of a lot of persecution, really,
Yeah,
from the
absolutely.
media and her former
Your
employers.
work in that area has been well known. I'm going to just thanks, Michelle. I'm just going to throw this back to Ross. Ross, yeah, the first time I met Ross was when he flew up to Sydney. This is Ross Jones, our investigations editor again. Flew up to Sydney to meet with a group of other activists into the story that he mentioned before, which was Ashbygate, which subsequently Ross wrote a book about, which is still available on Independent Australia, an excellent book.
Excuse me, David.
I want perhaps, Ross, can you remember that occasion when you flew up to Brisbane to meet with people like Vince O'Grady and and Brock Turner, if you recall,
Yeah, I
up
remember.
up at his place. Just maybe set that scene and
Yeah.
how and perhaps tell the story about how it came to be that you ended up writing the Ashbygate book. The coup to what was it? The coup against the speaker. Ashbygate, a brilliant book available in Independent Australia. Um, how did that all happen?
Well, after up, well, after we spoke a while and got involved in writing a couple of things about it, then Vince O'Grady, as you quite rightly pointed out, was one of the guys that got me involved in the first place. Vince's writing into it. Vince was a very good investigator, ex-cop, very good investigator. And so I came up and had a meeting with you, Vince, and Brock Turner at the back of the Gold Coast. And Brock was paraplegic, and the house I remember was full of ramps. And what a lovely man, though! And he scooted
Oh,
around. He had a lovely dog, and his wife was different.
the late Brock Turner, I should say. It's absolutely tragic that
That's
he
right.
passed away not too long after you produced the book.
Wasn't long at all. He had an accident in his wheelchair, which is very tragic,
Yeah,
and he never recovered from it.
no,
Killed him in the end.
yeah.
Um,
Cheers,
and
Louise he used to call himself on Twitter.
Dennis Louise, that's right.
Yeah,
He was a lovely man, absolutely lovely,
yeah.
man. And a very good researcher. I mean, the big advantage we had in the early days with Brock is it was like one of those TV shows, where you've got the assistant in the wheelchair who does all the research, And you'd say, hey, mate, what's going on? And he'd just come out with all these numbers and facts, and he'd be researching everything. And he had a really good mind for researching and getting right down into the bowels of the thing. So it was a great asset.
He actually had a pure soul too, didn't he? He just really wanted. He had a pure soul. He just really wanted. He wanted to do the right thing, and that was just borne out. I mean, he helped us raise with the Ashbygate Trust $55,000 back in the early days.
Yeah, it was over
$55,000 by setting up a unit trust, which was the first, I think, fully democratic investigation that's ever been conducted.
It was a breakthrough for independent Australia, I think. Once Brock was absolutely instrumental in getting that ball rolling, and that was 50 grand contributed by IA readers to finance the accurate recording and the accurate investigation into depth of the Slipper Ashby matter, which was the plot to overturn Australia's Speaker, by the way.
That's the way it was. Sorry, it's on my wall. I should be able to recall that. But my brain's not that good. I rely on all the contributors like yourself.
And so, because I needed pay, and it was an extensive thing, and so the readers remarkably chipped in $50,000 to fund our investigation, which was just a remarkable thing.
And one thing that I would say, Ross, sorry to interrupt, was just the average contribution and the extent of the range of where the donations came from, because they were from all over Australia.
All over Australia, regional, city, and they were all amount. I've forgotten what the largest amount was, and I've even forgotten what the smallest amount was. But
the average amount, well, there wasn't, I don't think there was huge amounts, but the average donation was about, I think, $22. We worked it out.
Something like that, yeah. So that's a lot of people to raise that amount of money. And I hope we did justice to their money. I think we did. I think that book now stands historically as an absolute accurate recording of what happened in the Slipper Ashby matter, which was fundamentally an attempted coup by the Liberal Party in Australia. And it's the mainstream media more or less walk past that fact.
Well, I'm very proud of that book myself. I've got quite a few copies sitting in the IA office, which I'd love people to actually read, because it is, as you say, an absolutely factual and trustworthy account of this fairly heinous, I would suggest, crime against the people of Australia, against democracy. I'm going to just throw this back to Dr. Lee Duffield, my former course coordinator. Thanks, Ross. What do you think are the reasons why Independent Australia should continue?
Look at what's been said by Michelle and Ross. Sorts of stories that they've been probing into require digging into it. So motivation to get facts, and then have a responsive audience who are going to be listening to that. So the success of the exercise has been that, thanks to your own patient work on it, Dave and Michelle, has day by day has been that it's got a following, and doesn't express automatically in terms of dollars, but can do. It shows commitment among the audience. The publication has taken its place among a number of online publications that deployed the leading technology up to 2010, when so much more started to be taken over by smartphones. But in that interregnum of about 15 years, a brace of valid and viable publications got going and attracted a following. Now, the answer to the question about the future is to keep it going. It's worthwhile to people who are in the audience for this. I would not say that it markets itself as an alternative publication, like going back to the 60s, where they would be anti-technology or whatever. or communitarian democratic. It's not. It's actually hard journalism, which says we'll work on facts. We may have perspective, but you'll notice everything is resourced and referenced in Independent Australia. So if we're saying something, we say where we got it from. There's not that much baseless opinion. That would be probably the big plus. I noticed a few times when IA has been aired, given some oxygen in mainstream media, they'll jump up and say, well, why would you have, why would you run a left-wing pamphlet and call it media? Well, they're wrong. So I think somebody was tackling Dave about it on the ABC television at one time. And they said, why would you do that? And its actual prime ideology is the ideology of good journalism. We get the facts and present them in the most interesting way possible. If you've got a perspective, well, then you've got to be transparent with it. And that works very well. Just thinking that program that confronted Dave with, you've got an ideology, was a highly ideological program that somehow got into the ABC. It was promoting activist feminism. And that is an ideology, and I think the ABC needs to tread carefully when it's airing, if it finds itself airing any ideology of its broadcasters other than the ideology spelled out in its charter, which is to keep yourself out of the story. Or at least, if you're in the story, be transparent with it.
I think that's a brilliant take. Thanks very much for that. I think that's that's a great approbation for what we're doing.
It's got an impact way above what it appears to be. And I know that for a fact because a few years ago in the election, whenever it was, 2019, I had my own personal vendetta against corruption and decided to start a political party called, and again, an anti-corruption political party. We only really publicised that in Independent Australia. We got sufficient people to get that party and form it. And then the Liberal Party changed the rules and made it, you had to have 1,500 people. We went back to the readers at IA, announced that, and we got our 1,500 people. Now, that's enough to form a political party in Australia. And that's loyalty from readers. That's people paying attention and wanting Australia to be a better place. And I think IA is the only publication I can think of in Australia that actually fosters those ideals.
Fantastic, Ross. Yes, I remember Finn. It was it was a shame that it didn't actually manage to get any reps in. I think maybe if you'd persisted with it for a while, because you normally wouldn't do it, get any reps in at the first election, that you probably would have. But I mean, who's got the energy for that sort of thing? It was a very noble gesture that you did starting it up.
Lee, just generally, I guess, from your time at IA and what's happened over the last, short while in terms of AI taking over, if you like, the news hemisphere, so to speak, and all the changes with algorithms and so forth on social media and also on Google. What do you see as the future of independent journalism?
Pretty good in that. I think there's generally a pretty good level of education and life experience in this country, which where you have a lot of people who recognise what's true. They stand for the standard values of freedom and truth, and if you're guided by those, it's it's a handy thing. There are lots of resources for this. A very good example is Independent Australia, which is close to unique for constantly keeping up with change and constantly maintaining a following, while the people involved never lose their head. I don't know anybody who goes off and tries to propagandize or go beyond setting up a really good story that sells itself. So it sounds like an old-fashioned value, but remembering some of the best lessons were taught at Athens University more than, let's say, 2,500 years ago. When it comes to freedom and truth, well, you need those for the future. Keep them going.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lee. Okay, over to you now, Ross. Can you top that?
No, I can never top Lee. I think one of the things that really always appealed to me about IA was its diversity of views and opinions, and the way it draws from its audience copy and ideas as well. Because a lot of people, people contribute to IA that aren't necessarily mainstream journalists, but they will know what they're talking about, and probably a lot more than mainstream journalists will know what they're talking about. And so I think in many cases, IA is more accurate and with more depth than anything you're ever going to read in a newspaper, because it's the person themselves, people who know what they're talking about, who are writing those articles and doing those things. And as a consequence of that as well, you get a diversity of views. It's not just we're going down that alley and that's our Murdoch's or Fairfax's ideological view this week. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's a broad church of views that is not driven down one. It's driven by its readers rather than being driven by any on-top control or ideology.